Hey, you guys. Hello. This is Annie Grace. And so my name is Annie Grace, and I help people really change how they feel about drinking. I help people drink less or get back in control of their relationship with alcohol, but not in the way you might think, because, there's a lot of methods out there, a lot of ways to do this. And a lot of them don't necessarily work as well as we'd hoped. I know for me, when I was on the journey to changing my own drinking and really getting back in control, I tried lots of things that weren't working. And so today I'm going to talk to you about the thing that does work. And the thing that really truly works is changing how you feel about drinking. Okay. And that is what we're going to cover today. We're going to change how you feel about drinking. So comment and let me know that you can hear me. Let me know that you are here. Hi from San Diego. Hi, Carrie. Hi, David. Hi, you guys. Hi, Emily. Yay, this is great. Hi, Katie. This is awesome. Thanks for being here. So this is the thing. I want you to think of something right now that you don't feel like doing, that you know somebody else who does feel like doing that thing. Okay. So I don't really feel like running a marathon. I have in the past run a few half marathons. And in the moment, I have felt like doing it for one reason or another. My desire to do it has overweighed or outweighed my desire not to do it. But at this point in time, the idea of getting off, the couch to go run a half marathon or run a marathon is not something that I feel like doing. But I have a best friend who really feels like it. In fact, she's trying to twist my arm as we speak to get me to run a marathon with her in May. And I probably, I really like her and I love her very much. And so I like the idea of doing it with her, and I may change how I feel. And yes, we can do things that we don't feel like doing because we can alter inside ourselves the pain pleasure mechanism to be like, okay, this is going to be worth it, or this is going to be better on the other side. But there are truly people who feel like getting up and going out to run every single day. They feel like it. It's not that they're like me, where I don't really feel like it, but I might do it anyway. And usually when we're thinking about drinking, we try to change our drinking with I don't really feel like changing it. Actually, it's the thing that I think is fun. It's the thing that I think is de-stressing me after the end of a long day. It's the thing that's helping me out, being a parent and, a colleague and all of these things, a wife, a husband, a spouse, a partner. I think it's the thing that's helping me. So we don't feel like changing it, but certain things start to happen. For me, those things were being really hungover and just not feeling good in the morning. That was a big one. And then that actually started to get better. The more I drank over time, my body got really good at processing alcohol. So I'd start to have fewer hangovers, but something else started happening right around that same time, which was all the alcohol wasn't actually doing anything for me anymore. I would remember literally drinking more than a bottle of wine and being like, I don't even feel it. I remember thinking, I'm not even getting drunk. I'm not even feeling tipsy. I don't even feel it. I actually had people tell me when I stopped drinking, they're like, you weren't the one. I wasn't worried about you. You never showed up drunk. And I was drinking more than a lot of other people. But the truth was, I wasn't the one showing up drunk because I just had such an incredibly high tolerance. And so the point, though, is that you usually, when we think about changing our drinking, we come at it from okay, I don't feel like it, but I have to. I have to because my partner's asking me to, because my kids are worried, because I'm starting to get worried, because I'm worried about my health, because I need to take a break, because I'm seeing signs, I'm seeing things in my life that are meaning that I have to change this somehow. And so that going into it in that way, first of all, creates this whole idea and think of anything I have to go run that marathon. I have to go exercise. I have to eat healthy. I have to cut out gluten from my life. The whole energy behind the have to it's heavy and it's not fun and it doesn't give us freedom and it doesn't make us feel like we're living our best life. And I think that if we can flip that to wow, I get to, one of the best moments in my life. And I talk about this in the intensive, which we are opening up the intensive. It is starting February 1st. So if you are curious about it and you really want to change this, you're ready, you are all in, you are serious. You're I want this. I want alcohol to be small and irrelevant in my life. I want to get to the point where I feel like I get to not have a drink, then join us at nakedmindcourse.com. But the thing for me was really, okay, well, I went from I have to drink less to, oh my gosh, I never have to drink again. And you can say those same words with two different energies. Oh, I never get to have another drink. I never have to have another drink. I never have to feel hungover. I never have to say something stupid that I'm going to regret. I never have to feel bad in the morning. Like, that energy is so different, right? And so today I really want to go into, what is it? How do we get to a place where you actually change how you feel about drinking? Because imagine that. Imagine something right now that you don't feel like doing. For me, I was picking running a marathon, but imagine something for you. Maybe you don't feel like doing the dishes, or you don't feel like vacuuming, or you don't feel like going to work in the morning, or you don't feel like putting together that presentation, whatever the case is. Imagine something you don't feel like doing. Now imagine something that you really do feel like doing. Like my husband and I are we just watched a few episodes of the Sherlock Holmes, I think, Netflix show, Elementary. And like, that's something I feel like doing. Like, do I really feel like doing the dishes? Maybe not, but I feel like watching Elementary. I have a feeling around it. And what if you could change that, how you feel about drinking? What if you could swap out oh, I don't feel like not drinking, but I'm going to because I know it's the right thing, energy, for, oh man, I really don't feel like having a drink tonight. Huh, that's weird. Like, that can really happen. It like truly can happen. And then guess what happens? The things you feel like doing, they're effortless. They're easy. They don't take they don't take willpower. They don't take efforting. You're not sitting there white knuckling it. You're not sitting there feeling like, you don't feel deprived. I like to liken this to what I know of vegans. My brother is a vegan, and I would never feel bad eating meat in front of him, because his energy around his decision to be vegan is so like, dude, I get to choose what I want to eat, and this is what I want to eat. He feels so clear about it for himself. There's no like, oh man, I better not have this hamburger around Ben because he's going to be feeling bad, like, because his energy is coming from such a different place. And imagine if we could do that with alcohol. Imagine if it could be like, wow, no, I don't even feel like having a beer. I want a nice tea, like, of course. And it's just so natural. Well, I'm just here to tell you that that's totally possible. So let's break it down. How do you do that? Before we forget, if you're just joining and you're wondering where is the really big how do you get there? I want you to consider joining me for this next class at the intensive. We only open this a few times a year. It's at nakedmindcourse.com. You can learn all the details. Go over there, learn all the details. But we're going to get into this. So how do you change how you feel, right? How you feel generally comes from your subconscious. And it is really based on all of the history that you have around a certain thing in the past, okay? And there's a scientist, and she likes to say that emotions are like predictions. Something happens and you feel an emotion about it, and that emotion is very much a reaction internally, a prediction to everything that's happened in the past and your beliefs about what's happened in the past. And this feels like, is that a bit woo-woo? It's not. It's science. It is how the brain works. Our brains are like computers. Like, this is really how the brain works. So if you change your desire for something, which you can totally do, it is literally accessible to us to do that through the right techniques, then how you show up in every single moment completely shifts. It completely changes. Okay, so if I changed my desire to be someone who wanted to wake up at 5 in the morning and put on my running shoes, my feelings around waking up at 5 in the morning and putting on my running shoes, yeah, some days I might be tired, some days it might be hard, but on the whole, it would feel good. And actually, by the way, it would feel bad not to do that. And that's really where you can get to with alcohol, that not only does it feel so good not to drink, so clear, so right, so like, oh, I get to have an iced tea. I get to quench my thirst with this humongous water bottle. I get to be, super clear all night long and fall asleep. I might go on a falling asleep tangent in a minute because it's really a good one, but I'm gonna write myself a note. And so you change this energy to I get to, and when that happens, it becomes so easy, because then the opposite things happens too, where you're like, wow, I really wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to feel like that kind of tipsy, dizzy feeling. I wouldn't want to feel that kind of thick feeling, that the heaviness that alcohol makes you feel kind of in your blood, where you're just like, oh, like just feel weighed down. I wouldn't want to feel that. And so it becomes really cool. So there's two aspects. One is your mind and your thoughts, and that's what we've been talking a lot about. But then the other one is the really real aspect of how alcohol interacts in the brain. And this is like physically, okay? So if you go from not eating sugar, like total no sugar for 30 days, and then you start eating sugar again, your body is going to crave sugar. When you're not eating sugar, your body is not going to crave sugar. The best description I've ever heard of this, just to take it all the way to the extreme so you can really understand it, is imagine somebody who's addicted to meth or heroin or one of the really intense drugs, right? The drugs that when they're in the withdrawal symptoms, they're having shakes and they're cold and they might be hallucinating and they might be upset and they're just like crying or begging for the next dose, the next fix. And you look at this person, you have so much compassion, so much love, and they're like, oh, I feel so horrible. I feel so awful. All I need is just that next dose, that next hit. That's all I need. That's going to make it all better. And in their mind, that next hit is going to make it all better. But you're removed a little bit. And so you can look and you can say, wow, no, what you're not seeing is that everything you're feeling now, all of that nastiness, all of the shakes and the cold and the tremors, that's actually caused by the drugs in the first place. And so, yeah, you might feel some temporary relief from that next hit, but overall, all of that is being caused by the drug. And it's so easy to see when we see this really massive high and then really intense withdrawals with something like heroin or meth. But the truth is that alcohol works the exact same way. It just does it on a much more mild level, depending how much we're drinking. So you have a drink, your blood alcohol content rises, and that's the nice feelings. Those are like the tipsy, euphoric, kind of like you feel a little off balance, but not in a bad way. You kind of feel like, you know, your brain is actually processing things slower. So you get a little bit like of relief from the crazy thoughts that are going on in your head. You kind of feel that nice feeling. That lasts, your blood alcohol rises. That lasts for about 20 minutes. But then what happens is your body says, no, alert, alert, this is not good for us. So we're going to purge that substance, that ethanol, and we're going to, you know, get it out of our system. Your body actually stops doing other things to get ethanol out of your system. It stops like digesting food and interesting things like that. Purging. Your blood alcohol goes from rising 20 minutes, 30 minutes later to starting to fall. And it's during that falling that the withdrawal symptoms are happening. And we don't think that, like, really, Annie, you can have withdrawal from a single drink. Yeah, you really can. That's how it works. That's how it works with any addictive substance in the body, is the body is purging the substance and those withdrawal symptoms are starting to happen. And it creates this itch. It creates this desire for the next drink, because all of a sudden the withdrawal symptoms, the blood alcohol falling, it feels like anxious and uncomfortable and uneasy and tired and just not quite at home in your own skin anymore. You just don't feel good. And you think, well, I'm just stressed or whatever. And so we reach for another drink. And so that next drink scratches the itch of the withdrawal from before. So this happens on a very micro level, like drink by drink, and we kind of keep drinking throughout the evening or whatever. But it also happens on a really macro level, where if you have a day where you're like, okay, I remember doing this in my own life. I'd be like, okay, I just need to have one alcohol-free day a week. That's really going to prove to me that I don't have a problem. Like, I just need to really take a break once a week. And the day that I would take a break, I'd be really miserable. And there was a lot of mental stuff around that, because I believed that without a drink, I was going to be miserable. So I was. So there was a huge mental aspect, but then there was this really physical aspect too, which is I had been drinking every single day for years. And then suddenly I'm not having one. The body is expecting it, and the drink is relieving the withdrawal symptoms, right? And so that those nasty feelings that I would be having on the day that I wasn't drinking, they weren't because I wasn't drinking, but actually as a result of all the previous drinks that I had had. So you're always withdrawing from your last drink. And that happens for, I mean, it takes the body It takes about 72 hours is what I've mostly read for alcohol to purge from your system. But then it takes your body time to rebalance, because your body's kind of shifted, saying, okay, a lot of alcohol is coming in. We know that it's a depressant. We're going to compensate for that with some stimulants. And then you take the alcohol away, the stimulants are still there. So then you're feeling anxious and upset, and you're like, why do I feel bad? Well, it has to rebalance. It has to say, okay, I'm gonna regain homeostasis. I'm gonna go back into balance. And when that happens, all of a sudden, you're like, wow, physically, you're not wanting a drink anymore. You're not feeling like you need a drink. So again, if we're coming back to the topic, how do you change how you feel about drinking? You have to consider this very real physical aspect. Just like eating, didn't have gummy bears for a month, all of a sudden you have a bunch of gummy bears, you're gonna be thinking a bit more about gummy bears for the next few days, right? Maybe weren't on, I deleted Instagram off my phone as an example, and then I put it back on and I delete it, and it's just this whole thing. But pretend I'm in the moment of deleting it, and all of a sudden the next day or two I'm like looking for Instagram, I'm like, oh yeah, I deleted it, because it just happens in the brain. There's this really, even with these things, like because of the dopamine response, there's this really physical aspect to all of the things that are addictive, because it creates this need for itself within the body. But then, so you go your 7 days, you go your 10 days, and you have totally rebalanced and you're feeling really, really good. But then you still crave alcohol on occasion. Well, what gives? What happens there, right? And I think that is where the real work is. Because, I have a friend, and she has been sober a very long time now. I think it's over a decade. And I remember we went to a ski vacation, a bunch of us couples, and we were all sitting around, and one friend of ours poured a glass of whiskey, and I'm sitting there and my friend's sitting next to me, and she picks up this glass of whiskey. She's sober, right? She's not gonna drink it, but she picks it up with like the most longing look at her face, and she looks at it and she smells it, and then she puts it back down on the counter like sad. And I hadn't been drinking for probably 3 years at this time, and I'm looking at her like, really? Like, you really miss it? And she's like, oh yeah, sometimes I just think that if nobody would ever know, I would just like go hide out and have, cosmopolitans or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow. Because she dealt with the physical part, she dealt with it more than a decade ago, but this mental aspect of feeling like she wants a drink, she never dealt with, she never handled. And that is the key to either having an existence where you feel like you're doing something you don't really want to do, me running that half marathon, or you feel like you're doing something you're really excited about, my friend running that half marathon. And it's the same half marathon. It's just that we have changed, and I know this sounds hard to believe, but literally we have changed our beliefs about it. I have thoughts about a half marathon based on my experiences of it, based on, the fact I couldn't walk for like 3 days after I did it the first time. And she has totally different thoughts about a half marathon based on the fact that, it's a totally different experience for her. Her body's different, but there's also just beliefs that I've chosen that I can change. And some of them are subconscious. Some of them are, just my experience embeds these thoughts and beliefs that, oh, running is hard. Whereas her experience embeds these thoughts and beliefs like, oh, running is fun, right? And so how she shows up is totally different. And that's the experience I want to offer you and what we do in this Naked Mind Intensive. And it's, if you want to join us, we are open right now. We only open this 3 times a year, and it is at nakedmindcourse.com. And so we're taking students right now. It's going to kick off February 1st. And this is, if you're casual, if you're just coming to see me, coming to get to know me, and you're not like, no, I want to change this, I want to shift this for good, the intensive probably isn't for you. It's called the intensive. It's intense. It's really we get to know you. It's a whole process that we take you through to really shift this for you. And we actually, for the first 9 weeks of it, you don't try to stop drinking. That's really important. You continue drinking, you become mindful about it, you change your emotional aspect. Because I'll tell you one thing, if we're talking about how do you change how you feel about drinking, and on one side you have this totally physical aspect, right? And on the other side you have this totally emotional aspect. And you, without any tools, without any mindset shift, without any science, you go cold turkey and you're like, I'm gonna stop. And sure, people do this. But then what are you dealing with? you're dealing with the emotions and the physical both at the same time. You're dealing with your subconscious and conscious desire for a drink. You're dealing with all of the social pressure. You're dealing with your internal pressure at the same time that you're dealing with the physical aspect of the fact that your body literally needs to take some time to rebalance so that it isn't overproducing cortisol or adrenaline to match out and balance out the depressant that is alcohol. And so you're dealing with these both at the same time. And of course it's miserable. And the intensive doesn't want to do that. We take you through the entire mindset shift while you're still drinking, because we want you to feel that when you're ready to stop, your mind is so clear. So when people actually shift their drinking in the intensive, it feels not like, oh, bummer, I have to do this. This sucks because these things are going wrong in my life. I know this isn't healthy. I know I want to get back in control. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like, okay, you know what? I might not feel good for the next week. I might feel a little bit under the weather. I might feel a little bit emotional, but I know that I'm doing it to heal myself. And so they go into that physical aspect with this mindset of like, I don't actually want to put that in my body anymore. And I know to get to the not putting it in my body comes through an experience of some physical discomfort. And then we do it together. And so, and I should say that the intensive, it isn't certainly for people who like are just, if you just want to take a break, if you're just curious, like, I would start at the alcohol experiment or, one of the other programs that we have for free. But if it's also not if you have can't even take a day off alcohol, because alcohol can be really dangerous. That physical aspect can be really dangerous. And I'll tell you that according to the Center for Disease Control, 90% of regular drinkers and excessive drinkers is actually what they say. So people who drink excessively, in excess, 90% of them are not chemically addicted to the point where they're going to have withdrawal symptoms, all of the nasty stuff that can come and actually really put you in the hospital or kill you if you're not under medical supervision. So if you can't even take a day off, you'd really want to work with your doctor doing this, and that's really important. And we can talk more about that. You can just email us or message us, but it's really important to know that. But most people, that's not the case. Most people, we do have this physical aspect very similar to what we'd have with sugar or anything else that we're just trying to break a habit, break a pattern, but there is a physical neurochemical aspect. But then we have this far greater, more powerful mental aspect, because it isn't after somebody's not been drinking for a year or 2 years and then all of a sudden they have what, I don't like this word, but you know what it means, I'll use it, the word relapse. It isn't physical. It isn't that they walk by alcohol and physically it's jumped into their mouth. It's mental. It's the thought patterning. It's the thought process. And so when we deal with the mental part first and we put the physical part on the back burner, oh man, the whole process becomes so much more fun. So it's really, really interesting. And I think that to do the mental part justice, we have to look at all the different aspects of thinking. We have very conscious thoughts around alcohol. We have thoughts like, oh, drink's gonna relax me. It's fun to have a drink. I like drinking at apres-ski. I like drinking on New Year's. Drinking at the football game is fun. Are you kidding me? I can't stop drinking now. The Super Bowl is coming up. All of those sorts of thoughts, right? But then we also have these very deep subconscious beliefs. And some of those are a little more we can't even see them because we just think it's true. And I know for me, one of those was alcohol relaxes a person. I believe that's true. I mean, I've seen that since I was a kid, homicide detectives drinking a beer after seeing an intense scene. I actually talked to someone who works in investigative journaling today, and she was talking about some of her very intense experiences in the field and how it was very common to self-medicate with alcohol in investigative journaling because of how intense the things that you see are. She's like, we see the best of humanity and we see the worst. And so, but that belief that it's going to help is a subconscious belief, because actually, and how you change subconscious beliefs is you really get under the skin of what it is, why you believe it. And then you present your mind with very clear logical evidence that's science-based in the case of This Naked Mind as to why it's not actually true. And then it feels like a magic trick. I mean, your mind literally just lets go of the belief. It's phenomenal. And you get to this place where you don't feel like having a drink after even the most intense of days. I can have a really rough day. And this has been true for me. I know it's been 5 years now, but it's been true long before that. I can have a really rough day and there's not a part of my brain that's oh, I just wish I could have a drink. I'm very conscious of the pain of, man, today sucks and it's brutal. And yes, maybe I want to crawl under the covers, or I want to shut off the world, but I don't want alcohol, because I'm so now clear, based on like thousands of hours of research that I've done, that alcohol will do one thing, and that thing, it will numb me very temporarily, but it will not make me less stressed. It actually makes me more stressed. It's like pouring gasoline on your anxiety. It increases the anxiety. And I know that not only in my own experience. I used to be on 4 different antidepressant medications. I'm not on any anymore. And I thank God for those medications. I feel like they got me able to even be able to make a change with drinking. So I'm not at all averse to medications. I just don't feel the need for them now that I'm not drinking, now that I'm dealing with my emotions in real life. In time. So that is really important. So here's the case is how you truly change how you feel about drinking is absolutely twofold. And that is the physical part, and that can be relatively quick. And that is the emotional and the mental part, the thing that comes after, that rears its head. And there's multiple ways that can happen. You can be triggered by something, a belief that you haven't unraveled, or a situation or a circumstance. You walk in, there was a really interesting study done about people who were addicted to heroin and then went to prison. And when they were in prison and they had no chance of getting heroin, they actually had fewer physical withdrawal symptoms, because their brain said, no, that's a no-go. Like, there's no chance. So the withdrawal symptoms that manifested physically were fewer. And they didn't have that hard of a time, like detoxing and getting off the drug. And then they left prison, sometimes years later, went back to their old haunts, the old places where they did it. And their brain was triggered into like all of the pre-dose kind of pattern loops. And they could actually feel some of those withdrawal symptoms in cravings, in terms of like the cravings actually manifesting in physical symptoms years after actually doing the drug. So even when we're talking about the physical stuff, so much of it can be mental. And so really undoing that is the key to lasting success. Because as I said at the beginning, if you think of something that you just don't feel like doing, and then you think of something that you truly feel like doing, and just swap them. Like, I know for me, I really felt like drinking all the time, any chance I got. And now I really don't feel like drinking. And that makes it like so incredibly beautiful not to drink. It means that instead of alcohol having this place of noise in my life, because I'll tell you one thing, when you stop doing something that you want to do, or when you're doing something that you don't want to do, there's a lot of chatter, right? So if I don't make peace about this marathon, and I go and I run this marathon with my friend, but I'm really resistant internally, and we're out there and we're running and it's hard, there's going to be a lot of chatter. It's going to be like, oh, Annie, you shouldn't have done this. I told you so. Why are you doing this? I might even get resentful of my friend. I might get frustrated. There's going to be a lot of chatter because I'm doing something that I don't really want to be doing. Right? Now, if I'm also not doing something that I want to be doing, so say I really want to be drinking, but I'm going out to happy hour with all my friends. I said, not tonight. I've overdone it this week. I'm having my night off of alcohol. I'm not drinking. There's going to be a lot of chatter. It's going to be like, oh, this sucks. How boring. I hope this night gets over. Like, why is everybody else drinking? Why do I have to do this? Is it even worth it? Maybe I shouldn't. I mean, on and on and on. And the beautiful thing about getting your feelings in line with what you really want your behavior to be is the chatter goes away. And that's one of the most profound things about this Naked Mind and this Naked Mind Intensive. So if you want to join us, it's starting on the 1st. We have spots. It is nakedmindcourse.com. You can learn all about it. You can put comments in here. We'll be in the comments. I'm going to try to go through and do some Q&A. I'm sure there's lots and lots of comments that have come in. If you have questions for me, actually, it's even better than me scrolling back up through, wow, lots of comments. If you have questions for me, just pop them in the bottom of the comments, and that would be really cool. What's the name of my book? This Naked Mind. Oh, sorry, you're not asking me. This is great. You guys are having chats with each other. That's really, I'm watching this video while enjoying a bottle of Heineken 0.0 with your help in participating in the Alcohol Experiment Dry January. And reading This Naked Mind, Alcohol Explained, such a good book. I discovered I enjoy beer, but not the alcohol. That's so awesome. So good. So, so, so good. The chatter is the worst. I know, Danielle, it is the worst. Janet, I did the very first intensive almost 2 years ago. It was a game changer for me. I'm a 1.5 years alcohol free and I feel free. As a bonus, I've made a lot of wonderful lifetime friends. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, Janet. So good to see you. And thanks for chiming in. And that's one of the coolest things, is because it is a very, much smaller group than we do these alcohol experiments. There's 110,000 people, you guys, have gone through the free alcohol experiment. And it's amazing. It's great, but the intensive, when we get together and we just go and we just get to know each other. I mean, there's been just friendships that have been built. We literally get into in the thick of it. And it's a really beautiful place where people just come as they are, and there's no shame and there's no blame and there's no tough love. It's just the love, not the tough. It's really cool. Gareth said, my life has changed so much. I'm a different person. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Gareth. That's so awesome. How much daily time is required to commit to the intensive? Christine, that's a great thing. So I've tried to make it, I know human behavior, and I try to base absolutely everything on the science. What does the science say? What are our attention spans? What can we actually do in a day? The intensive is broken down into 9 modules where we really go through the mindset shift. And then it's another month of coaching where we decide to make our changes. The entire thing has weekly coaching, and then you're coached inside the group by coaches. We have lots of coaches in the intensive. So you get basically 24/7 support from your other community members and from coaches. And the weekly calls are an hour. Sometimes we go a little bit longer if we dive into something, but they're an hour. And then the modules, there are between 5 and 7 videos per module. So I tried to give you at least 1 or 2 days off a week. And those modules, I tried to keep them under 20 minutes. Some of them are much shorter, but I know that we're just, we're like a 20-minute culture. So like it is literally packed everything in, really important mindset shifting information in the least amount of time as possible. And then there's some workbook and journaling exercises. Those are optional, highly recommended. If you get stuck, your coach is going to be like, go do that. This is really important. And so those are really highly recommended. But so I would say all in, you're probably spending 30 to 45 minutes a day. But it very much is, you're making a change. And when people consider how much time they're spending, I know how much time I was spending thinking about drinking, feeling hungover, wondering what to drink, etc. Like it really is a nice trade-off. And because the group is open, you can have more time too. So some people sometimes like people go and just like hang out, have watch parties and stuff. Isla says, can you talk about the intensive entails versus the group alcohol challenges? So the intensive is much deeper dive. All the information is very similar. We just go, it's different in the sense that the alcohol experiment is really for somebody who's like, okay, I'm ready. Like I want to try. I want to see what life is like. I'm curious enough to just take a break. Day 1, take a break. The intensive is really if that seems really scary to you, if you're like, oh, 30 days alcohol free, I don't know if I could do it. I certainly don't want to do it. It sounds awful. It sounds painful and it makes me want to run the other way. Then I would consider the intensive. If you're somebody who's like, yeah, like 30 days alcohol free, that sounds cool. That sounds doable. I'm interested. I want to challenge myself. Then I would do the alcohol experiment. But the intensive is really flipping it on its head. It's going through the process that I went through to stop drinking. And there's like a 4-step process. It's PATH is the acronym, and it's pause, act, transform, and hone. And it's going through that with a coach and with all the other members. The pause is one of the most important parts, because in the alcohol experiment, it's like, okay, day 1, you're not drinking. But a lot of times we haven't taken the time to reconnect with ourselves, to put down those weapons of shame and blame and frustration and hatred. And I mean, I know for me, I was so deep in the spiral of making and breaking promises. I was so deep in the pain of, oh, really, again, when is this ever going to change? How can you? And I was really at the point of what's called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is when you think that things don't have a chance of changing. because the reality is like we only will change when we think there's a possibility that we can get better, that we can heal, that we can make a difference. If people are given, they've done studies, if people are given like a test and they're like, this is an impossible question or this is an impossible test, people won't even attempt it. And I was in that place where I was like, there's no hope. I'm not even going to be able to attempt something. So I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I couldn't keep trying to drink less. I couldn't retain, I didn't know this at the time, I didn't have the language for it, but I couldn't retain that desire for alcohol and keep trying to not drink it. That inner war, that cognitive dissonance, it was so painful. And if you think of it, like imagine that you are just seeing conflict across the street, right? And somebody's fighting. Like as humans, that's going to affect us. We're going to feel intense about that. We're going to feel like, oh gosh, like I hope I don't get involved. It's going to make us feel emotional. You can even see fights on television or in a movie, and it makes you feel emotional. And then imagine that you're fighting with somebody in your own house. Maybe it's your partner, your kids, or your parents. You're fighting. Like that's really emotional. That hurts us. It doesn't feel good. Okay, but what we don't realize is that when we retain a desire for something and a desire not to do something, when we both want to drink more and want to drink less at the same time, we are fighting inside our own minds. We're fighting inside our own brains. And that, because we just normalize it, because we're like, okay, everybody does that, but that is the most soul-destroying, painful type of conflict there is. And as drinkers, we have learned that what do we do when we feel pain? We drink. So you can see how this cycle gets really deep. And if you're in that, that's why the intensive is so powerful, because we stop. Say, stop. You're not going to make any changes. You're not going to do anything until you want to, until you feel differently, until you have healed some of that deep self-loathing, until you've learned the reasons that you're doing what you're doing, so you forgive yourself. And so that you build on successes and you build from a place of truly desiring and wanting to, not because you think you have to. And if you notice that, whenever we think we have to do something, there's a big part of our brain that doesn't think it's the right thing to do necessarily, like, or retains this very deep desire for it, right? But when you just want to do something, when you change it to I get to do this, then that fight is gone. You're like congruent. And your success goes up. And then because there's no shame, no judgment, no blame, we're not like, oh man, you went 5 days and then you drank, I don't know. That never happens, ever. It's like, oh my gosh, you did 5 days? How cool is that? How much did you reduce your drinking over the last week? 5 out of 7 days? That's like an 80% success rate. All right, let's do tomorrow. Let's get that up to 90. It's always positive messaging. It's always compassion-led. It's always grace-led. And that, by the way, is totally based in science. There's so much new science that says that allowing for mistakes, celebrating mistakes, learning from mistakes is the fastest way to change, even when it comes to things where we're so afraid of our mistakes, like drinking. And so that's what's really different about the intensive and the alcohol-free challenge. So Amy, how can I handle not drinking at upcoming social events? I'm not wanting to go as I'm convinced, I'm wanting to not go as I'm not convinced I can do it. So Amy, I think that the tips that I would give you just quickly, and if you go to YouTube and Google Annie Gray's or This Naked Mind social events or happy hour or something like that, I have a bunch of videos on this so that you can look at those too. But what I would tell you is that the best way I know how is to go with curiosity and a firm commitment. So curiosity meaning, okay, no matter what happens, I've already decided I'm not going to drink, even if it's absolutely miserable, even if I'm there 15 minutes and it's too much pressure and I can't handle it, I'm leaving, even if I'm crying in a corner into my friend's shoulder because it's so miserable. I'm not drinking, but I'm going to show up and find out how it is to be here without drinking. I'm approaching it like an experiment. I'm approaching it with this open curiosity instead of any judgment, because we get ourselves in trouble when we judge that it's going to suck, and we also get ourselves in trouble when we judge that it's going to be amazing and it doesn't meet our expectations. Judgments of amazing are our expectations, right? So curiosity, go into it with curiosity, but also with a very firm decision. And if you can't make a really firm decision, take your time. There's no rush. There's no need to go. You can take care of you and get to a point. That's the beauty of the pause, is we take care and get to a point where we're like, okay, we feel like we want to do this. And what I mean by a firm decision is that maybe means yes. Going into a situation like that saying, I'm going to see how it goes, means yes. I'm not going to drink unless it gets too hard means yes. So going with a no matter what, I'm not drinking, no matter what. And by the way, if you doubt your ability to do that, some things that I did early on is I would just tell somebody. And maybe it wouldn't be somebody that's there. It's like, hey, I'm just not going to drink tonight. And it wouldn't be like a big deal, but I would just tell somebody, because that way you have this positive peer pressure. And so those are the two things, which is really good. So Matt says, I definitely want to work on my mindset. I'm 5 days into the 30-day experiment. Congratulations, Matt. I made it 90 days in the past year. I know I need to work on the mental aspect. Should I read the books and join the next intensive? For me, the intensive is like, it's got all the components. It's got the community, it's got the connection, you've got the coaches, and you've got the content. And it is very much structured for people who are like, I am ready to change this crap in my life. So the group that we have is just committed, and they're committed as much to each other's success as to their own success. The coaches, same thing. And so it's really great. And it just kind of depends. You know, another thing is the intensive isn't cheap. If you've been to nakedmindcourse.com, if you checked it out, it's not cheap at all. And I think that when you compare it to things like therapy and stuff like that, like you're like, yeah, okay, it's a good deal. But here's the reality. You put the money that you would have spent drinking. We did a survey, and the average intensive member was spending, and this is, again, the intensive is for people who are like ready to stop this. They're for people like me who are drinking a bottle, 2 bottles a night. They're just ready for the BS to be done, right? They're like ready. And so when we did a survey of former intensive members, the average person was spending between $13 and $15 a day on alcohol. And I know that was totally true for me. I was at least that, probably more if I went out. And so that's really how it's priced. And I know you don't stop drinking, but it's like, no, you want to make a financial investment to ensure your success. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I've had so many people come up to me like, thank God, you know, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have watched all the videos unless I had some real skin in the game. And it's like this energy, you're bringing this energy of, no, I want this, I'm gonna make it happen. And yes, we have great guarantees. Like, we do not keep your money if it doesn't work. It's really good. You can read all about that at nakedmindcourse.com. But there's something really powerful about saying, no, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it in a group, I'm gonna do it starting on this date, I'm not gonna take any excuses for myself anymore, and I'm just gonna make this happen. And it's so low key because we don't stop trying to stop. Now, if you're 5 days in, Matt, and you're like, I'm not going to start, but I want all that, that's totally cool too. We have people who, like, not everybody is drinking at the beginning. Most people are, because that's how it's set up, but like lots of people aren't. And it's cool too, because then you become a little bit of a mentor too. And like, wow, when you start to help, when you start to pay it forward, when you start to say, I might only be 5 days ahead of you, but I'm 5 days ahead of you. And by the way, it will be like 11 by the time we kick off. It's really powerful. There's power in that group. So yes, so okay, thanks you guys. Lynn, what do I recommend for someone just finishing detox? Lynn, I think it really, I love the intensive for that for you, but I also think, you know, just buzzing through a book or two and just seeing like, yeah, is this resonating? Because if you've handled all of the physical things in detox, I guess it depends where you are. Like, and what you could do is you could join the intensive, and like I said to everybody, nakedmindcourse.com, but there's a phenomenal money back guarantee. I mean, you can join and you can be like, is this for me? Is this not for me? I don't know. And really try it for yourself. So you could do that. And then you could see if it really feels like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. This is totally going to be for me. The beauty of it is that you're there with a very close-knit group of people. You really do get to know each other really well. Is very, very cool. Wendy, what if I've had a few data points and slipped up during January live alcohol experience? Do you still think the intensive is for me? Wendy, that is probably like really great indicator that it's exactly for you, is because there's something else driving that, right? Like you've already made the commitment, you're going to go 30 days alcohol free, and there's a few points in there where you're like, something happened. And often, you guys, we come into this, something happened. Like this is what will happen on a typical intensive call. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. It just was so weird. I just felt like it. And that's belief for you. But the problem with our beliefs is we believe them. I know it sounds so silly, but like I had a podcast guest who told me this recently, Simon, and he's like, yeah, I just couldn't believe that my beliefs wouldn't be true because I believe my beliefs. Like, of course they're true, right? But the problem is that because we believe them, they're really hard to see. And so sometimes it takes digging, but the gold, the true change is changing those subconscious beliefs, changing those subconscious desires. That is where the magic happens. That's where everything changes. That's where everything shifts. That's where you have people like Janet who are like, yeah, a year and a half ago, and I've never been freer, and I don't even think about it, and I struggled with this for years. Like that is where the magic happens. But we don't always see those, because what happens is we just have a blip, we just had a drink, no big deal, and that's great, and we should forgive ourselves, totally data points, all that stuff. But if you don't stop and say, but why? If you stop and say, but why, and you can't know why, then you really should work with a coach, because a coach is there, like you're in your fishbowl. This is like the fish, they're swimming along and someone says, hey, how's the water? And the fish are like, what water? It's because our beliefs feel like water. We can't even tell that we're in them, right? And that's where a coach and the intensive, and you say, oh, and ask some questions. And it's this back and forth conversation. Oh, okay, that's why. And that's when you solve those things, that's where the magic really happens. So, yay. Colleen, I think so. Will you email us at hello@thisnakedmind.com and just confirm? There is a total video-based intensive that is self-paced, and then there's a group coaching intensive. So there are two different things, two different price points, and the one that opens on the first is the group coaching one. So I'm 90% sure you're there. Yeah, these comments are awesome. Okay, you guys, this is so great. We will reply to anything that I didn't address in the comments. Again, it's nakedmindcourse.com, and any questions you have, just reach out, put them in the comments. Crystal, do you have to drink for the first 9 weeks? You do not have to drink. If you're already not drinking, like there's definitely, I'd say 30, maybe 25 to 30% of people are like, no, I'm already alcohol free. I'm just here for my mindset. And they get not only, like, I think they get like so much out of it because they're not in any of that physical place, but also because, like I was saying, they can help. What is it like? Like it almost like you become a little bit of a mentor and you're paying it forward, and that's just so beautiful. So awesome. All right, you guys have such a good day, and yeah, we'll get to all the comments, we'll get to all the questions. Keep them coming. Keep your mind open. Obviously, do what's right for you. If you feel it in your heart. I wouldn't say that like you're gonna feel like, yes, 100%, this is it for me, but you should feel like, I'm scared, this is intense. Sorry for the pun, but it also, there's something about it that I think it's time. And if that's where you are, I would absolutely join us. So nakedmindcourse.com. Have a wonderful day.